welcome back. Hello, everybody.
Can you guys give us some
give us a yes if you can hear
indication
us.
that you can hear us? We have an exciting VidChat. We got a bunch of questions from the
Bunch of good questions.
And by the way, if you want to submit a question for the VidChat, just let us know. Send questions to nlpcoaching.com, and we'll answer them on the VidChat every week or every month.
So this is our VidChat for September. Oh, it's September already.
Yeah.
This is our VidChat for September 2013.
You know how we know it's September?
How?
Because school started. School started. We we live near a school. Who doesn't? And every morning when we leave at 9 o'clock, we're in a line for miles and miles and miles. So school started. Yippee. So it's September for sure.
Anyway, welcome everybody. We have a bunch of really good questions, and funny enough, you guys are like you're talking to each other. Speaking of perceptions, projections, she says, because they are all kind of aligned in the same direction. It's like every VidChat we had so far had themes.
They've had a theme. Every VidChat's had a theme, and the theme
Right.
has been pretty consistent in terms
Critical
of the questions.
thinking was one of our themes so far. And let me arrange this camera a little bit.
there
Good.
we go.
So far, we had a lot about critical thinking, how to get there. So we'll get to your questions in a moment.
We got a couple of really good questions about critical thinking, especially one that we'll take later on in the second hour, probably.
First, some announcements. As you know, this has been the year where Tad celebrated his 30th anniversary in the business.
30 years? What, are you kidding? If you told me 30 years ago I'd be doing the same thing for 30 years, I would have laughed at you. In fact, I'm laughing now. It's funny. I never thought I'd be doing the same thing, because I had done everything before getting into NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis. I had done all sorts of different things. Did business consulting, owned a radio station, a lot of different things. And then and I did each of those for about 7 years. And then after 7 years, I thought, what's next? And NLP is next. And then what's next after that? NLP is next after that. So...
But 30 years is, and the interesting part is that at least since I joined you, 12 years ago, this has been our greatest year.
This is our best year ever.
Biggest number of participants in all the trainings.
Isn't that funny?
As you probably, some of you know, we had 115 people in our master practitioner in Sydney. We had, 60 some people in the States in the master practitioner. We will have probably the biggest trainers training in the last few years in Australia coming next in October, which is exciting. We're 1 week away from going to Australia. And your question, folks, questions that are coming to us, folks, are really exquisite. They are fantastic.
Somebody asked me once, what are you going to do now that there's a recession? What are you going to do now that the economy of the United
Find
States
a hole and crawl in it.
is heading down? Well, there's two things you could do. You could find a hole and crawl in it.
Crawl in it.
Pull the dirt over the top of your head and hope nobody walks by.
Right.
Or you could just get out there and keep going on, because I'll tell you what, my dad was an educator. He was in the university system, an educator. He was a chairman of the geography department at Syracuse University for many years, and he said during the Depression, the number of people taking college degrees went up dramatically. So education is in my opinion, education is a recession-proof business, and we're proving it. At NLPcoaching.com, we're proving it, because we seem to be at the top of the heap.
Well, maybe your 30 years in experience and long name and creator of timeline therapy have something to do with that. I don't know what to say. Anyway, so let's. That being said, some guide rules for the VidChat. As always,
Please don't promote yourself.
the VidChats are simply for answering your questions, answering them anonymously, as we always do, folks. You know that. They're not for promoting you here, and they're not for any other purposes. So please keep the communication in the VidChat.
And we are happy that you're here.
accordingly. So in no particular order, but just the order in which I printed the emails,
which may be at random.
we'll
Random
get immediately to the questions. Now, if you are, just be aware, if you're typing questions in the chat room as we talk, we're doing our best to talk in the camera and look in the camera when we talk, because as you know, the VidChats are recorded and we post them on our website for
Up
people.
to 2 weeks later.
Because many people around the world cannot attend directly because of the time zone difference.
Especially if you're up at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Oh God, that could be terrible.
No, well, somebody's here. I saw it in the chat room. Somebody's here at 1 a.m.
Oh my God, more power to you.
That's definitely stick-to-itiveness.
Absolutely. But as we look in the camera and we hallucinate you guys in front of us here, we might miss the questions. So as we finish the questions that you send to us, folks, then if we have time, we'll take questions from the chat room.
We'll take questions at the end from the chat room.
Otherwise, we might miss them. That's
so hold your in the chat room. Hold your questions, and we'll do our best to answer the ones that we've gotten on email.
Good. So here is the first question. As I said, in no particular order. Here is somebody who asks, here's my question to the live VidChat this month. How are people's choices most likely affected by their negative emotions and the negative emotions of... How are people's choices more likely affected by their negative emotions and the negative emotions of others? And what would be the most likely outcome at the unconscious level when a person increases their choices? Oh my God.
Yeah.
But listen to the end of the question. P.S. These questions are motivated by my 5-year-old daughter, who's been exposed to NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis since the womb, and grew up around NLP trainings her whole life. My daughter said to me yesterday, Dad, when you get angry at me, that takes my choice away, and when you take my choice away, that's my life you are taking. Stop it.
Funny.
What a kid.
What a kid.
Look out for that kid.
She's going to rule the world.
Absolutely. What? That flawed mate says here in the email. Heavy shit. Can I say that? Okay.
Yeah, I said it. You can't say it on the VidChat.
No, I can't. I'll have to do beep. Needless to say, I apologized to her and told her that's right. And we grew a little more together. Okay, so...
Beautiful.
Let's see. How are people's choices most likely affected by their negative emotions and the negative emotions of others?
The theory of timeline therapy is that all limiting decisions are probably, not always, not 100%, but probably based on negative emotions. So a limiting decision has usually as a component of the limiting decision a negative emotion too. It has a negative emotion which is attached to it. That's why when we let go of the limiting decision, we let go of the negative emotion first. The emotion disappeared, and then we noticed the decision disappeared.
Now, let's come back a little bit to what we talked about in, I think it was the previous VidChat, yeah? So let's see. As you folks probably know, or most of you know, unless you are fresh to NLP, one of the principles that we teach, which it doesn't come from NLP, it comes from Carl Jung, actually, the Swiss psychologist.
Jung's one of our favorites.
Our favorites, yeah. Is the fact that we call it perception is projection, meaning what you perceive from the outside world,
outside yourself,
is simply a
reflection.
A reflection, yes, a reflection from your inside, from your inner world.
A reflection of what's going on inside.
Now, the NLP model of communication, interestingly enough, demonstrates the same thing. Because the 126 bits of information that you make use of consciously,
did you hear that?
Consciously, are but a figment, a tiny, infinitely small amount compared to 11 million bits of information. That's one statistic. We heard 45 million bits of information. There are a lot of different statistics nowadays of the amount of information with which we are bombarded and we receive through all our senses every second. Right. Now, compare that, even 11 million, right, with 126. Then the major question here is, because we're talking about perceptions, projection, and how negative emotions influence our choices. I'm going there. Just bear with me.